All right, everybody, welcome back to the best damn training channel on YouTube. Today, max velocity, we're gonna be doing flying 10s, some fly flow flies. The volume on this, even though it's kind of a peak in terms of the weight room stuff, has been like lower in total amount of volume being sets and reps, but much higher in the intensity. I'm gonna keep the volume on the sprints pretty much the same from what I've done for the past few weeks. So we'll do 3 reps on the flying 10s, we'll do 2 to 3 reps on the fly flow flies, and then we'll call it a day after that. So what I'm doing first is just doing my general warm-up. What I like to do for a general warm-up is just kind of move through ranges of motion, open up the hips, feel that the hamstrings are getting loose, get ready to perform some sprint drills. And essentially just kind of feel loose. Go through those ranges of motion, open up the hips, open up the hamstrings a little bit, get everything moving around, and then get into the drills where you're actually starting to work on like sprint specific patterns, but more so just kind of prepping the body to get some intensity in when you're doing those sprints. I don't think specifics on the drills really matter as long as there's some sort of progression, and you'll see how the progression goes today. It's like nice, easy drills, and then we start doing a little bit more intensity on the drills, and then we start building up even more intensity on the drills, and to the point where we're getting into our sub-max flies, and then we start sprinting, and then we'll put the timing eyes out and we'll start timing. So really all we're doing is just trying to ramp up the engine and get feeling like we can put some high efforts in and try to do that in a way that allows us to perform the best on each training session. But something I'm gonna do today as well is answer some questions from the internet. So put up yesterday a little thing on my Instagram, getting some questions from you guys. Said I would answer some of the best ones today on the channel. So first one here says, what is the biggest positive impact on your training that's not training, sleep, or nutrition related? It's kind of difficult to say like what's the biggest positive impact on my training that doesn't have to do with training, sleep, or nutrition. It's like what aspect of your life has had the most positive impact on your training. So you're trying to take something that's not related to the subject and find a way to relate it to that subject. And for me, if I were to kind of narrow it down and say like this is one thing that has had an extremely positive impact on my training, is the fact that I have probably been more consistent with training than 99% of people in the world. And that's the reason why I've been able to continue doing the things I'm doing, especially at the age that I'm at, 39 years old, turning 40 this year. Like consistency since I was 15 years old. I don't think from the time I was 15 when I first walked into the gym, I can honestly say I don't think there's been a period than about 7 days that I've ever not trained. And maybe that was because I was on a vacation and just took some time off. But I don't think there's actually a period of time I haven't been to the gym. Like I've never stopped. Like that consistency has been something that has allowed me to continue to train, to feel good, to build the resilience, to be injury free, to be able to see the progress that I've seen over the course of 25 years almost. So I definitely say the consistency, but like where that consistency comes from is a place more of like, I just fell in love with the gym at a very young age. I fell in love with training at a very young age, like 15 years old, started going to the gym, loved it. Like, I love it the way that people love going out with their friends on a Friday night and having a drink, or the way somebody loves watching their favorite show and binge watching it for however long. Like whatever people have in their life that is the thing that they enjoy doing the most, like that's what training is for me. And maybe that sounds like a very boring answer, or maybe that's just kind of like, oh, like all he ever wants to do is training. It's like, it's just what I like to do. I can't help the fact that like going to the gym is the most enjoyable part of my day for the majority of my days. And training is a very fun thing to do. It's not a bad habit to have. And maybe, like I said, it makes me a little bit boring because I don't want to go out on Friday night and have drinks with people because I want to go train on Saturday. To me, going and training on a Saturday morning is more fun than going out and having a drink on a Friday night. And that's just how I am. And I can't help it. I found something that I enjoy doing. I was able to take that thing that I enjoy doing and create a career out of it and be able to help other people as well. So the consistency, starting at a young age, and be able to carry that consistency through, I think has been the biggest impact on my training and why I'm able to do the things that I can do. So I've answered that question the same way 3 different times, but I think that would be probably the best way to answer that in terms of taking something that's not training related and trying to relate it to what my training is. All right, next question here is, what is your programming strategy to avoid overuse of tendons and joints? I don't ever program thinking about preventing overuse of anything. If anything, I program thinking about building resiliency so I can overuse tendons and ligaments. Maybe overuse isn't the correct word to use there, but I don't have a strategy where it's like, oh, I'm gonna do this, but I'm gonna be very conservative so I don't overuse this part. Like, I've been squatting once a week, every week for 20 years. I've been sprinting 1 to 2 times a week, every week for 20 years. I don't think programming to avoid overuse of anything is an effective way to build a program. If anything, you should be programming with the mindset of trying to build resiliency so you can use your body more and not have to worry about overuse injuries. I think overuse injuries happen when people do too specific of training too frequently. So you'll start getting like jumper's knee issues if all you ever do is go to the gym and you're jumping and you're trying to jump and do basketball. Like, let's say you're trying to dunk a basketball and you're spending 30, 45 minutes, an hour a day, 2 hours a day, just continuously jumping and jumping and jumping and doing the same exact thing, versus you can jump every day and change that into varying ways of jumping where you're doing broad jumps one day, maybe you're doing vertical jumps another day, maybe you're doing light pogos, easy, extensive type plyometrics on another day. Like, you can spread that out to where you're continuously doing things that you enjoy doing without experiencing what we would call an overuse injury. So I think if you get too specific for a very long period of time, then you can experience some overuse stuff, which that just comes again into programming to build resiliency and being able to kind of program a microcycle or a macro cycle in a way where you're not continuously doing the same thing over and over and over again. But like I said, I don't program thinking, how do I avoid overuse injuries? I've just programmed thinking, what's going to help me get stronger, build resilience, so that I don't experience injuries in the future, if I am thinking about injuries in any capacity when I'm looking at building out a program. So now we're getting to the part of the warm-up where we're starting to get a little bit more bouncy, try to get a little bit more intensity. We did our A walks, A marches. Now we're gonna do some skipping variations. We'll go into high knees, and then we'll start lengthening out this and going into some bounding variations and cycles as we prepare to get into like upright sprinting for today's max velo work. All right, so the next series in the warm-up that I like to do is kind of like some bounding variations. That's going to allow me to work on kind of hip extension, get the knee behind the hip a little bit. So we'll do like a short straight leg shuffle, which is going to be working on just kind of quickly flexing and extending at the hip. Then we're going to open that up and do kind of a longer straight leg bound and work on a little bit more power when we extend the hip, and we're going to be doing those bounds. Then we go into a bent leg bound, which is then going to bring in a little bit more flexion in the knee and allow me to push through the ground a little bit more, trying to build that force in the extension through the hip. And then we'll go through some cycles where we're gonna be doing like a right leg cycle only, working on just kind of quickly getting through that cycle as we're going through max velocity. And then we'll start warming up with some sub max velocity sprints, and we'll do some build-ups at like 85, 90, 95%, and then we'll start sending it for the flying 10s today. So first one here is gonna be that short straight leg cycle or straight leg shuffle. And what I'm really trying to do is just quickly get the hip and the knee, or excuse me, quickly get the foot and the knee out in front, and then quickly get the foot and the knee behind the hip. So rapidly trying to get some sort of flexion and extension through the hip, trying to keep the leg at the knee relatively straight the entire time. And then from there, get a little bit more forceful with it, and we're gonna extend that bounce. Rather than doing this short little shuffle, we're gonna really try to get that leg out in front and then push back behind us to get a little bit more length on each of these strides. What I like to do on this is kind of like jog into it slowly and then really open up. So the camera is at about 20 meters, so I'll probably jog into this about 5, start opening up, and then from 20 to 30 meters, really try to extend those bounds that I'm trying to get for that last 10 meters. And then we're gonna go into a bent leg bound. So rather than being straight leg out in front and then straight leg back, what a bent leg is doing is you're just bending at the knee a little bit more. And what that's gonna allow is for a little bit more lift in the hip to be able to get a little bit more power as you drive that foot back down. So a straight leg bound, obviously you're requiring the hamstring to be very flexible to be able to lift that leg up really high. But another way that you can get more lift through the thigh is just allowing that bend so the hamstring is not gonna be as tight. And that's gonna put you in a position where you can hit the ground, push a little bit more forcefully. So we'll go from the straight leg shuffle, straight leg bound, bent leg bound to create a little bit more power as we progress through these bounding variations. And then we're gonna move into cycle variations. So we're gonna do right leg cycles only. Now that we've created a little bit of force, worked on bounding, we're gonna try to get a little bit more velocity and a little bit more frequency. So we're gonna be doing, like, keep that left leg relatively bent, and we're working on cycling that right leg as quickly as possible as we go through. So it's kind of like a single leg bound with a cycle, but I just call these right leg cycles. And then we're gonna go ahead and do the same thing on the left leg. And then we're gonna stick with that right leg, and we're gonna go for frequency now. So we're gonna do the same thing, but rather than doing like every third step, do a quick cycle. Every step is gonna do a quick cycle, and this is gonna be at a shorter distance because we're going at a higher frequency here. So rather than going the full 20, probably just go about 10 meters here. And at this point, it should be really warm. It should start to feel like you're getting close to having like that warm, like pre-sweat sensation, which is good. And now we're gonna go into alternating cycles. So this is gonna be kind of the beginning steps to opening up and actually getting into running. So that same thing we did with the first, where like every third step, we did a cycle, but we're gonna alternate the legs. So we'll go right, left, and then carry that out from 20 to 30. Probably just do like an easy kind of upright run at about 70, 75%. So like something close to what almost like a tempo run would be, just to kind of get into more specific upright sprinting before we get into our sub max work. All right, so I'm gonna get into my sub max fly-ins, and all that really means is we're not going all out. We're just trying to build up intensity. These are kind of like the final warm-up sets before you get into your working set. So if you're doing back squats and you know you're gonna be doing, you know, sets of 2 to 3 at 90%, you're looking at doing that 80, 85% and making it feel real good before you jump up to 90. So sub max is pretty much the same thing. We're looking at going like 80, 85%, 90, 95%. And then once we get up close to that 95% range, we'll start sending it and doing some full-on sprints. But a question here that I got that I think is a great question is from Coach Ryan Patterson. So Ryan Patterson is a guy that I followed probably just recently over the last 6 months or so on Instagram. And I think what he does is pretty legit. Plus he's just strong as shit. Dude is a monster. One of the guys that I would absolutely love to meet and throw down a session with. But Ryan Patterson wanted to know, what is your targeted metric for accruing enough fatigue before a taper? My targeted metric for accruing fatigue is something that I've been doing for a long time, and it sounds really stupid, but I call it the fist test. And the fist test for me is I wake up in the morning and give myself about 15-20 minutes to wake up, and then I try to clench my hands as hard as I can, and based off how that feels, I've been able to kind of judge my level of fatigue and my level of readiness before a training session. So there are more scientific ways to do this, and there are ways that you can use like force plates, and you can do like a mid-thigh iso pull, and you can compare that to weeks previous, or you can do a counter movement jump on force plates and compare that to weeks previous to see like what kind of state of fatigue are you in. Do you need to go into a deload? Do you need to go into a taper just yet? Or what may be happening because you have like actual objective numbers there. I don't have force plates. I don't have ways to specifically measure fatigue. So I do a subjective way to kind of feel that out, and I do that fist test, and it has worked really well for me. And like I said, it sounds really stupid, and it's something that I do for me because I've done it long enough. I kind of know how I feel. Like there's some days when I wake up in the morning and I do my fist test, and like immediately upon waking up, it feels like I can just throw my fist through a concrete wall. That's how hard that clenches, and I know that that's going to be a really good day. And there are some days when I wake up and I can make that fist and it feel like I'm trying to squeeze as hard as I can, but it doesn't even feel like I could squeeze a loaf of bread. Like that means that I'm probably in a more fatigued state. And those are the metrics that I use because it's something that I can do with me no matter where I am, no matter like what day of the week it is. I don't have to have specific tools to be able to measure that out. So the fist test for me is what I do. So for like yesterday, I did the fist test. I give myself a rating out of 1 to 10. I would say like, I'm like 7.5, 8. Today, I did the fist test. I'm about an 8.5, 9. So I felt much better today. Tomorrow, I'll do the fist test again, and we'll see where that's at. If I get to the point where like I continuously have days where I'm at like a 6 and a 7, then I'm looking at like, okay, maybe I should take a deload a little bit earlier, or maybe I should take today a little bit lighter than what I intended because I don't feel like I'm as ready to train. And having usually a day or two of a lower intensity allows me to bounce back up and get back onto the program the way it is. So that's the metric that I use. I know there's millions of ways that other people can do certain things to figure out like how much fatigue have they accrued. But for me, like I said, it just works with what I got going on. All right, so I got my 10-meter section for where I'm gonna be doing my fly. So the first one here, these two cones are at 20. That red cone there is at 30. So what I'm gonna do is just kind of like a 15-meter buildup, try to hit this first rep at like 80, 85%. Then I'm gonna extend that to a 20-meter buildup to allow me to hit a higher intensity a little bit easier, look at 85, 90%. And then I'll go to that 30-meter buildup, which I'll move the camera back. So we'll start the sprint at this red cone for that last 1 to 2 reps. And then we'll set the timing eyes up and we'll start sending it for 3 on today for the flying 10s. 80, 85% on this first one. We're looking at going from yellow cones to red cones. All right, so we're gonna try to get 85%-ish on this next one. And what I'm gonna do is just extend that buildup zone, allow me to hit a higher velocity in that 10-meter zone. So as you're doing the sub-max flies, you don't always have to keep your build-up zone the same. Like it's not gonna take me 30 meters to build up to get to 75%, right? That might take me 15 meters. And if I wanna get to 80%, that might be 15 to 20, 85%, let's say that's 20, 25. And then when you start getting to like 90, 95%, then you can start building up towards that 30-meter mark. but you don't need to just take an entire 30 meters and just jog the first 15 and then kind of crank it up to be able to hit your 80% number. So when I do my 80%-ish, I look at 15-meter build, and we're going to extend that back here to 20 meters, try to hit something around 85%. All right, so now we're looking at building up about 25 meters here. We're gonna try to hit something around 90%. Red cone to that pink cone is gonna be the fly zone. The red cone is 30 meters from the start line over there. So I'll probably start a couple steps in front of that, get to about 25 meters, send it for about 90% here, and then we'll set the timing eyes up. Whew. That felt like a good last warm-up rep. All right, so we got the fly section set up. Finish cone right here. Start cone right there. Gives us our 10-meter section. We're gonna have a 30-meter build. Goal for today, 3 reps under 0.97 on each of those repetitions. I need to use my phone for the timer, so I'll be answering more of the questions when we get into the fly flow flies. So I'm gonna knock out these 3 reps real quick, and then I'll get into some more of the questions from Instagram. But one question I did get that I can answer right now is a lot of people want to know what timing system I use. I use the free lap cones because they're very consistent in terms of I know how to set them up. I know that I'm getting the same measurements every single repetition. So if there's a difference in time, I know I can see the improvement or see if there's any kind of increase or decrease in time based off of what I've done previously. So they're easy for me to travel with as well, so I can throw them in a bag. They don't take up much room. So free lap is the cones that I use here. But I'm gonna go ahead and get down to the start line, set up, and then we're gonna knock off this first rep. All right, first rep, 0.99. A little bit slower than what I was looking for, but I think what happened is I didn't get upright and get into my stride and get those knees up and really think about putting those feet down into the ground. So I'm gonna try to get a little bit more front side. I felt like I was kind of pushing off and cycling behind myself a little bit. So we'll take about 2-3 minute break here, and then we'll send it again for another flying 10. All right, 0.98 on rep number 2. Felt better. Felt like I got out in front a little bit more, was able to put a little bit more force into the ground. Obviously, the time reflects that as well. But I don't think we're gonna have 0.97s and below today. So I'm gonna do one more. 3 reps under a second is still great, but we'll take a couple minutes here, do one more rep, and then we'll start knocking off some fly flow flies. Probably only gonna do 2 reps on the fly flow flies. And then as I'm doing that, I'll answer some more questions for you guys. All right, 0.96 was the fastest today. So we got 1 rep under at 0.97, which I'm happy with. Overall, that's a great session. Three reps under a second is nothing to be too upset about. So we're gonna take that as a W today. The 0.96, to be honest, made me wanna do another rep, but I'm gonna be a little bit more conservative today and play it safe because I have a taper next week, and then I've gotta feel really good for testing week, and I'll be trying to hit something like a 0.94, 0.93 when we're looking at that test week. But I'm gonna get into some fly flow flies here. But before we do, let's answer another question for you guys. I got this one here. It says, if you could only get 1 barbell for a home gym, what type of barbell would it be? I would get an Olympic lifting bar because that bar is the most versatile bar that you can get if you're looking at getting 1 barbell. You can do all the powerlifting movements with it. So you could bench, you can squat, you can deadlift. Plus you can do all the Olympic lift variations with it, clean and jerk and snatch. There's nothing that barbell is not going to be efficient in. Now, it may not be the best barbell for deadlifts, but you can still deadlift with it. It may not be the best barbell for bench press, but you can still bench press with it. Versus if you were to get a power bar, like that thing is going to be very difficult to do Olympic lifts with it. 1, it doesn't rotate very well. 2, the knurling on a power bar is absolutely insane. So thinking about doing that when doing a clean, and you're essentially going to have little daggers digging into your neck, not a fan of that idea. But I think if you're looking at one barbell, an Olympic lifting barbell is the best one to go. If you're looking at brands, they're all pretty much the same. Like unless you're at like the elite 1% of Olympic weightlifting or powerlifting, then the type of barbell you're using, I don't think really matters. If you want to go with a Rogue weightlifting bar, those are extremely good. If you want to go with an Eleiko weightlifting bar, those are also extremely good. For the everyday person, for myself, like I don't need the most elite, top-notch, best tier weightlifting bar ever. I just need one that rotates really well, that's got some decent knurling to it, and it's got a little bit of give to it so I can get that whip when I'm doing my cleans and my snatches, and I'm perfectly fine with that. So I'm gonna set up for the fly flow flies. We're gonna knock off the first one here. I think I'm gonna do 2 reps total on this. So 2 quality repetitions, and then we're gonna call it a day. All right, for shits and gigs today, what I'm gonna do is I put the cones up. So this is my second flying 10 on this fly flow fly. So I'll build up, fly, float in between here, and then cone number 1, cone number 2. We'll just get some times on these back 10s. All right, so fly flow fly number 1, hit a 105 on this back 10, which based off of like that 0.98, 0.99, I'm not going to count the 0.96 because it was a little bit of an outlier for the average of reps today. But if you're looking at 0.98, 0.99, if you're adding, let's say 5% to that, it puts you right around like that 104, 105 range. So 105 means I'm hitting damn near close to like that 95% number, which is what these flies should be done at. So the intensity is correct. Now we're just going to try to duplicate that, do one more quality rep here, try to get again like a 104, 105 on this back 10. And that means based off of today's flying 10s that we've got the quality that we're looking for, and we're not trying to just burn ourselves out too much today. So one more rep on this. Was a 108, which means we are done for the day. Got too slow. No need to do any more work today. That is going to be it. But before we end today, let me see if I can't find another fun question to answer for you guys. All right, so collab with Will, Ryan Patterson, and Dylan. Well, Will and I tried to link up in Austin. I don't think he's going to be able to make it because I'm going to be there at the end of May, and he can't make it until June. Ryan Patterson, would love to meet up with him. I have no clue where he lives. Dylan, though, I do know Dylan is in Austin. I will be in Austin end of May. Dylan and I have already linked up. We're going to do one of his YouTube videos where he kind of like interviews people while he trains with them. And then we're also going to meet up during his weightlifting course that he's doing, I think the end of May 30th to June 1st, something like that. So I'm going to show up for like the initial meet and greet on that because I'm leaving a couple days after. So that will happen. Long drive program coming. Absolutely not. I golf for fun, and I think it would be really fun to do a long drive competition, but I need to get much better at swinging a golf club before I can even think about entering something like that. So the long drive program, not coming at all. Long drive content, probably coming sometime in the future. Okay, this is going to be interesting. All right, we're the only ones in here right now, so I think I can get away with this. But it says, how far do you think you can throw a shot, disc, and a jab? Let's find out. All right, so training at a track, I just so happen to have a shot put, to have a discus, and to have a javelin. So let's go ahead and toss these and see how far we can get. Now, to be fair, shot put's only 4 kilos. I couldn't find an 8 kilo one, so we're gonna have to just deal with what we got today. Another thing is, I am not a shot putter, nor have I ever thrown shot put. So for anybody who may be a track and field aficionado, if you compete in track and field, please do not be offended by what you're about to see. I see them always do this. They'll like put their hand up, make sure that they got the ball or the shot in the right spot. Elbow goes out, put it onto the neck. All right, I'm gonna try to spin, but I have no business doing a spin technique at all. All right, I've seen this done 1,000 times. I've been to many track meets. Let's go ahead and butcher this for everybody. Easily 30 meters, probably world record. All right, discus. This is a 2 kilo discus, so this is an official discus weight. Same thing, seen it done, never done it before. Let's see how far we can butcher a discus. Ooh. I threw the shot put almost further than I threw a discus, which is a bit embarrassing. And then we got this little training jab. So normal javelin is 800 grams. I know this because I did throw jav a few times. This thing is 470 grams. So this is about half the weight of a normal javelin. I also haven't thrown a javelin in a very, very long time. I stopped throwing javelin because it would just absolutely destroy my elbow every time I would throw it. So I'm not gonna do an approach. We're just gonna toss this and see what we can get. I'll say that's about 40, 50 meters on a 470 gram jab. There you have it, shot, disc, and jab. I hope you guys liked today's video. I appreciate y'all for watching. Make sure to like, make sure to subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one.